Congratulations to the new papa.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
How are they doing? We are.
Oh boy, they're doing pretty well. We went to the pediatrician today. Everybody is healthy and happy, but a little tired.
All right, so just so you guys are aware, we are streaming live at this point.
Oh,
Sorry. All right, so it's 7 o'clock, 7:01. Thank you everyone for coming to the Upper Darby Township Council Committee meeting on June 3rd, 2020. At this point in time, Michelle Billups, can you do a attendance of council?
Sure. Councilman Hafiz Tunis Jr.
Here.
Michelle Billups is here. Councilman Matt Silva.
Here.
Councilwoman Blackwell.
Here.
Councilman Bob Gwynn.
Present.
Councilman Burke.
here.
Councilman Sadiq.
Yes.
Councilwoman Faraya.
Present.
Councilman Don Barnett.
Good question. Okay, no, he's here. Don, unmute your mic. There you go.
Thank you. Present.
Thank you. Councilman Wagner
Here.
and Council President Wentz.
Here.
All here in the counted in the present for.
Right, and also to acknowledge we have Police Superintendent Timothy Bernhardt, we have Treasurer David Heyman, we have Mayor Barbara Ann Keffer, we have CAO Vince Rangione, we have solicitors Sean Kilkenny and Courtney Richardson. And then, of course, Allison Dobbins helping us with all the other fun stuff. So thank you all for being here. At this point in time, we're going to have a moment of silence, and I'm going to ask Councilwoman Billups to lead us in that moment of silence.
Thank you, President Wentz. So just want to say something that while we're doing a moment of silence, we will not be silent against systematic racism, but we will stand with the loss of the 3 recent people that passed away from police brutality. And Danielle will read those names.
Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we are going to hear from the Honorable Mayor Barbara Ann Keffer.
Hi, everybody. Tomorrow, as you may know, is George Floyd's funeral, and our hearts go out to family in this tragic time. As you know, we were caught in a tidal wave that's sweeping throughout cities in our nation Monday. And I want to commend our police department for how they responded to the situation. We did have property damage, which is unfortunate, but there were no injuries and there were no fires on 69th Street. The National Guard is there, as you may know. Superintendent Bernhardt and I are in constant contact, and every day we talk about whether or not we should lift curfew, and we've decided not to do that just yet. And I want to be respectful of the superintendent's time, so I'll let him speak and say what he has to say, and then I have some more things to add. So thank you.
Timothy Bernhardt, or Superintendent Bernhardt, please go ahead.
Great. Good evening, everyone. So like the mayor said, first, I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank the entire staff and council, Allison Dobbins as well. Like the mayor said, we had an incident Sunday with the protest of the death, the outrageous death of George Floyd. The police department joined in the protests that were going on throughout the township, peaceful protests. The mayor and I were at those protests on Sunday. Those protests turned into chaos on 69th Street. There was no message, no meaning for what took place on 69th Street. Starting early Sunday morning, the mayor and I, like the mayor said, we were in constant communication all day Sunday. I want to thank her for that. We started to see an influx of individuals come into the township. We had a plan in place. We enacted that. We had the officers come in. We also got great assistance from Delaware County's chiefs, from Tim Boyce. Chief Iola from Hereford offered his assistance and his men. Chief Ken Colson from Chester Township was a great asset. He also offered us his men, which were able to help us move that line forward. The mayor and Allison were in the township building. At one point in time, I decided to go over there and get them. They came over to the public safety building, and we worked collectively through the night in constant communication to defuse the situation, control it the best we could. I think we did. Like the mayor said, there were no injuries to any of the protesters and to any of those individuals that were down there looting. There were no injuries to the officers, and everyone did the job that they were supposed to do. The plan that we enacted, that I enacted with the command staff, was followed through. And like the mayor said, there is damage down there. There was damage, heavy damage to some of the properties, but no one was hurt. And Mayor, I want to thank you. I want to thank your staff. I want to thank the council for supporting the police department. Thank you. All the men and women here are very appreciative of the support that you've shown us. And I can't thank you enough. If there's any questions from anyone, I'll answer those. If not, I will excuse myself.
Okay, does council have any questions for Superintendent Bernhardt? Not seeing any. I just want to tell you, council really appreciate you and the mayor and Allison working out for us to do a walkthrough of 69th Street on Monday. That was very beneficial for us to see the damage that had happened and to really talk to you about what was going on. And so then when constituents reached out to us on, whether or not the National Guard was necessary, we could clearly answer that question for them as a solid yes, based on our conversations with you and what the National Guard provides for us as far as protecting and holding down 69th Street so that our officers could actually take care of the rest of the township for all the other, things that they would normally do. And so having been there on Monday was very beneficial to council. So thank you very much for helping to make that happen and sharing all the information with us that you did.
Sure, absolutely. And to follow up with that, the National Guard is still there. The mayor and I, again, have been speaking regularly. The curfew is still in effect from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I've been in communication with some of the businesses down there as far as them coming in to do cleanup and assess. And the mayor and I have been talking about when we are going to allow businesses to reopen, and that's a fluid conversation. And hopefully after a few days of peace like we've had, we will get back to normalcy.
Great, thank you. So we didn't have any problems between Sunday and today?
So no, we have not.
Great.
There have been no issues to report and no activity down there at all. The only incident that we had was this morning's incident with the ATM at Township and Drexel Avenue.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else
Absolutely.
from council have anything? Councilman Siddiq, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to thank our police superintendent doing the great job for the township and the safety and security for the citizens of Upper Darby, especially 69th Street area. The business district belongs to District 6 and the 7. And Saturday I was with the our district attorney and with the police force, and I see in myself, I witnessed the situation. It's thing like unbelievable. In very short time, it happened. And many of the store owners and many of the residents, they were asking and calling me, hey, how come police is not action? And I told them that police is in action, but the things happen is so quick and damage the property and looting start. unbelievable, and thousand people on the street. So the following day, Monday, I did visit most of the store and meet with them and extended my hands to them that if any way we can help as a community, as a council person, as a township, and those business people, they appreciate that. And I introduced myself with them, and the business people was asking if there's anything township can help, the financial or any other support. I say I cannot say anything. And while I said that we have a meeting on Wednesday, after discuss with the meeting, then I can get back to all the business owners. And they are talking about how long the 69 street will be shut down and how long the National Guard will be deployed to the street. So if our chief can tell that how long we are planned, I mean, we don't know, but so far I live around 69 street. I see the things is under control, and I'm very proud of our police department do the excellent job, and also our mayor Barbara and Allison also worked very hard on Saturday evening. I myself was in the police station and meet with our chiefs and all the emergency officials. So once again, thank you so much, Chief, our police superintendent, and also Honorable Mayor doing the good job for the township.
Thank you.
The question to our superintendent that how long the National Guard will be deployed to our city, because city of Philadelphia, I heard that mayor is calling back the National Guard.
So yes, to answer your question, again, going back to the communication with Mayor Keffer, myself, and also Vince Rangione. Vince, are you on here? We've been communicating as we were on Sunday evening. The National Guard is here, and I'm reevaluating that every day. The concern that I still have is that we are still having protests, peaceful protests. I want to make sure that those continue and we don't have that influx of those that are just there to create havoc. So I'm also monitoring the city of Philadelphia to see how they are removing National Guard and some of their security measures, being that we are so close and border them. Again, repeating myself, I apologize, but that was our issue Sunday, is that we got that influx of those that were looting and rioting in Philadelphia that came over the border. So it's a minute-to-minute, day-by-day answer to that, and we are evaluating that. Again, the mayor and I've been speaking with Vince Rangione as to when to call them off. They're here until at least Friday morning. My plan is the plan with the mayor and Vince. We've been speaking. I want all the business owners to get back in there. I want them to clean up. I want them to get their stores back ready to open and operate before we lift the National Guard. They've been a great asset to us. It's allowing all the men and women here, the officers that were working around the clock for the past 48 hours, to get back on a normal schedule, and also so the residents, we can handle all the calls that still are coming in throughout the township. So they will be here until at least Friday morning. We'll see how the week goes. Like I said, we haven't had any incidents, which is good. Hopefully we can get through a couple more days without any incidents, and then we will go back and reevaluate their presence here. And as far as the stores, we'll look at that again towards the end of the week, and again, make sure everything is still peaceful and that it's safe for all the stores to reopen.
Thank you. So if the store owners reach to me that if they can come there to clean up their business, they're allowed to come, right, sir?
Yes, correct. So we've been going through the list. Some contacts we have and some we're still looking to locate. And we are encouraging all the business owners to come down, to evaluate, to assess, to clean up, and to see what they need to do to get ready to open. And we want them to do that while we're there and while we have the National Guard. So the street is still closed. They can access, they can get vehicles down there, work trucks, and anything they need to get the stores clean to get reopened.
So Sadiq,
Thank you.
or Councilman Sadiq, can you get together with Superintendent Bernhardt after, sometime tomorrow to connect him to the business owners that you're in communication with, in case he doesn't have their contact information?
Yes, sure, I'll do.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. That would be excellent. Thank you. So
Sounds good.
thanks. So Councilman Silva has a question for you. Go ahead, Councilman Silva.
Hi. Superintendent Bernhardt too. First, I would just like to thank you and your officers. I was really comforted by like the methodical approach that you've taken since Sunday. You guys have done an outstanding job, and but my question has been, my question is, the curfew, is that township wide or is that predominantly at the 69th Street area?
So yes, first off, thank you. I appreciate your support. And second, yes, the curfew is township wide. And we ask that everyone obey by that. Again, if any necessity, you have to go out, any essential employees, that is excused, but the curfew is 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. and it's township wide, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great,
Yep.
thank you. So Councilman Wagner has a question as well. Go ahead,
Absolutely.
Councilman Wagner.
Thank you. First, Mr. Superintendent, congratulations to you and all of our first responders on a terrific job in a terrible situation.
Thank you.
Are you able to share with us any more details about the incident this morning at Drexel and Township Line?
Sure. So this morning, about 5 o'clock this morning, two individuals put an explosive device at the ATM, Township and Drexel, in front of the nail salon. They lit that device. The device exploded the ATM machine. There was nothing in the machine to get. Since the COVID-19, those boxes have been emptied. So we have great surveillance video of it. We're looking to see if we can enhance the video to get maybe a partial tag of the vehicle. And we are working in conjunction with the ATF, who was also out there this morning assisting us, as well as the District Attorney's Office, CID, the County Investigative Division.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Any other council members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. Bob, was that a wave as a yes? No. Okay, so thank you so much. Please thank all the officers and the National Guard on our behalf. We greatly appreciate all that you guys are doing.
Great. Thank you very much. Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yep, you
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Mayor, please go forth and prosper.
So I also wanted to thank crews from Parks and the Highway Department that started cleaning up 69th Street at 5 in the morning. They were joined by a large group of residents that had volunteered to clean up. It's mostly the surrounding streets off of 69th Street. So that was really great. And everything was done, probably by 8:30 in the morning. So it looked completely different than it did the night before. And we want to thank them for the really good work. And I want to say congratulations to our CAO, Vince Rangioni, and his wife, Sky. Their baby arrived on Friday. And despite that, I'm still in constant contact. Vince, he's still working by, remotely. So it's
Thank you.
a little, a nice bundle of joy in a very, chaotic time. So that's great. It's great to see you here at the meeting.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Governor Wolf recently announced that he will allow the stay-at-home order to expire also on June 5th, which ties into when we will be switching from red to yellow. And I would like our Director of Special Projects, Allison Dobbins, to talk about what the transition from red to yellow means for Upper Darby.
Go ahead, Allison.
So overall, as a township administration and working closely with the mayor, we've been updating our guidance as the township moves from red to yellow. So the first thing is that the Upper Darby Township Municipal building will remain closed to the public as we work to create systems that will protect our staff and the public as they begin entering our building. We have moved many of our services online. Our staff will still be working on a reduced and staggered schedule. Our senior centers and the Welcome Center will remain closed. The guidance as we move to yellow is that gatherings of more than 25 people are prohibited. So we're really paying attention to any place that there are gatherings. The Upper Darby Township Library System does remain closed to the public, but they do have a step-by-step plan to begin providing services over the next, month or so. We do plan to reopen our township parks for walking and for low contact recreation such as tennis. But because gatherings of 25 or more are prohibited, our basketball courts and our fields will remain closed. Playgrounds will also remain closed due to the CDC guidelines, which currently discourages use of playground equipment due to the inability to keep those surfaces clean. In addition, no township permits will be issued for parks or playgrounds. And of course, we're going to continue to monitor county, state, and federal guidance in order to determine when permit activities will be allowed. Parking meter enforcement will resume on Monday, June 15th. So, it's been great that we've been able to allow residents to use the streets to park around the clock at no cost. But as businesses reopen, we need to return those meters to their intended purpose of serving and supporting the businesses and their customers. So those are the primary pieces to what the township is planning currently for yellow. If council has any questions, though, certainly I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, are there any questions from council members? Bob, go ahead.
I want to thank the administration, the mayor specifically, and Allison for their help with the community in distributing the food, that they've done such a good job in satisfying the hunger needs of many of the people who are battling through the financial portion of the COVID-19. And I'm sure also you're probably seeing some of the lights flicker. We're starting to have a storm, so we might
Yes.
lose power.
That's a good point. Okay, yes, and I do agree. The food distribution has been awesome. Thank you so much for making that happen, even though you were actually working on it today with a massive storm coming through. So I believe Bob drenched his phone in the process. So I believe it's in a bowl of rice right now. So are there any other council members that have any questions for the mayor or Allison on the things they've mentioned so far? Okay, seeing none, please continue.
So one last, or no, two last things.
Yep.
The Eastern Delaware County Stormwater Collaborative has issued an RFP for a steam restoration and green stormwater infrastructure project at our Drexel Gardens Park. So
Great.
We're looking forward to that. The bids will be open on July 9th. We're not directly involved. We're part of the collaborative and we support it financially, and we have representation on it, but that'll be good. There was just a tornado warning issued according to my phone. So.
Yes, that's what that warning was.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, tornado. Great.
And at the next council meeting on June 17th, I'm going to be giving a Juneteenth proclamation. So that's what I have to, that's it for me.
Okay. Okay. Great. So, sorry, I was still writing Juneteenth. Great. So for my report, I just want to thank all the residents who have been coming out and protesting peacefully for George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. I know that there was a protest happening this evening near the Lansdowne and Garrett Road, and the one that the mayor, myself, and Timothy Bernhardt and Bob Gwynn was at with State Rep Zabel were at on Sunday. They were very peaceful, signs being held up, drivers passing by were honking in support, and it was a very positive, peaceful event, and that was the same type of thing that was happening at Garrett Road and Lansdowne Ave early, just before this meeting began. So I thank everyone who's having peaceful protests. For those who are looting in our community, please stop. The looting is not helping us, and it's not helping our businesses. It's not helping our community. And we really need you to just stop the looting. And it's putting, it's deterring the focus of what the real issue is. And the issue is senseless killing of Black and brown residents of our country. And so let's focus on the issue and, you know, protect each other and stay safe in today's age. So I'd like to thank our Upper Darby Police Department for all that they've done to keep us safe. One of the things that Superintendent Bernhardt did not say was that on Sunday night, when they were moving up 69th Street, there were workers in some of the businesses that were trapped by looters. And they were and so the police force had to move up the street and keep everything in place and to rescue the workers from 69th Street, from the different businesses that were trapped in those businesses, and their lives were in danger. And it was a very difficult situation. So they did an amazing job, and having the National Guard here allows them, as he said, to go back to having our officers go back to the rest of their normal schedules throughout the entire township to protect the entire township. So I just wanted to thank the National Guard for being here, and our officers and first responders for all that they do. So thank you. Okay. So next up, we have law and government and rules and procedures. Chairwoman, Councilwoman Billups, members, Councilwoman Blackwell and Councilman Silva. Can we get Solicitor Courtney Richardson to read, give us a brief on ordinance number 3074?
Thank you, President.
And if your mic is not mute, then please mute it, and I'm gonna mute mine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is ordinance 3074, an ordinance of Upper Darby Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, setting personnel policies for township employees, regulating their use of electronic communication and information devices, repealing all inconsistent resolutions or parts thereof, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. The purpose, anytime for clarification, anytime that there's a change to the administration of township personnel, the Home Rule Charter, the Upper Darby Home Rule Charter requires that it be done by ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance is to ensure the integrity of the township's governmental operations and avoid the inappropriate use of these devices and systems. It's also to deter unauthorized uses of equipment and unauthorized access to township information, avoid the disruption of critical information communication systems. The policy itself regards to what exactly electronic communication and information devices and systems include, which are smartphones, tablets, telephones, cellular phones, email, voicemail, paging, etc. That also being said, it includes township employees, any authorized contractors, guests, and elected and appointed officials. And then ownership is just for clarification of who exactly owns the devices. They are owned by the township. The procedures and regulations, are for official township business. Prohibited personal use included promotional purposes, for-profit business, communication of political or religious nature. There provides more in-depth and detail documentation regarding the policy in general, and then the also the creation of official department web pages, and there is a inconsistency clause, severability clause, and an effective date. The reading.
Thank you. So I disappeared to close my windows, just so if people disappeared to either move from windows or close windows. Just wanted to let you know why some of us disappeared. So thank you, Solicitor Richardson, for that brief. Are there any questions or concerns on this ordinance from council? Or Councilwoman Billups, did you want to weigh in? We discussed this, you discussed that you had multiple committee meetings on this ordinance, so I was wondering if you wanted to say anything about it. You gotta turn your mic on. There you go.
Yeah, we had multiple meetings about this, and it went very well for everyone that that attended the meeting. And I think we all agree that it's necessary. Like Solicitor Richardson said, anytime that there's a change in I don't know what the word is, in people. But you know, because the employees don't own the equipment, so I think that this is a good ordinance to pass, and yeah. So, and we all agreed upon it, so we're all in agreement with it. So hopefully you guys will agree also.
Great, thank you. Any council members having any questions or concerns? Hafiz, is that you? Is that a wave? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm really concerned is just the way I'm interpreting it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it just seems like a standard electronic policy from an employer, right?
Um,
Are you there?
Yes, I believe that was the intent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
To have something standard in place.
Yeah. That's it's very common in many corporations within the private sector, even state government also, and federal governments also do similar things. So yeah, I think that's great.
Awesome.
Yep.
Any Matt, Councilman Silva?
Yeah, it's like he says, it is kind of a standard policy, and it's just sort of to establish that the device is purchased for use for township business or used for township business and not used for any other purpose. And it's I mean, while it's convenient to shop online or something, like our people are working for the residents of the township, and it's with their interest that I think this is established to make sure that that's what's going on with the township equipment, and also that's what this policy is in place for.
Great. Anyone else having questions or concerns on this ordinance? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. All right, great. So Councilwoman Billups, are you good with this moving forward to the agenda for Monday? Turn your mic back on.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so we will have this on, it can move to the agenda. Great. Okay, and then our next one is ordinance number 3075. And if Solicitor Kilkenny can give us a brief on this ordinance.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam President. Again, this is belt and suspenders in that we're dealing with, you just heard about township employees and their application of devices. This goes to social media content. So I'm gonna, and it deals only with employees, not elected officials, just to be clear. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this. Prohibited use of social media at the workplace while on duty. Employees may not access online social media using any communications devices, including but not limited to computers and smartphones at the workplace or while other engaged in official business. The only exceptions to this prohibition are when employees are required to access online social media by their supervisor or where attaining such access is required by their job. Employees may only post information pertaining to the township and its personnel with the written approval of the CAO or his or her designee. This includes any postings which respond to negative, inaccurate, or misleading postings made by others about the township or its personnel. Employees who make any such pre-approved social media postings must not do so using municipal computers during regular work. 3, use of social media outside workplace or while off duty. How employees use social media outside the office while off duty reflects not only on their character, but on the township as well. Employees should be aware that most social media postings are public in the broadest sense of the word and will remain in the public domain for a very long time. These restrictions are not designated to violate the First Amendment rights of any employees, but to protect the township and all its personnel from social media postings which violate the rights of others, including their right to privacy. Where appropriate, employees will be held fully accountable for knowingly engaging in any of the following misconduct involving their use of social media. Posting harassing, threatening, or discriminatory comments about other township employees or officials, the transmission of messages or images, including videos that are offensive, derogatory, defamatory, sexual in content, or such messages or images are plainly associated with the township or its personnel, posting any information or conducting any online activity that may violate local, state, or federal laws or regulations, unauthorized disclosure of any confidential or proprietary information in the possession of the township, including but not limited to confidential police investigations and privileged legal opinions in personnel matters. Sharing this type of information, even unintentionally, may result in legal action against you, the township, and or the township's officials and personnel. When in doubt about the nature of such information, employees should consult with a supervisor. Posting comments or images that misrepresent the township's policies and actions, posting messages or images on social media which defame, harass, or bully other township personnel, or otherwise create a hostile work environment for them, posting statements or images on behalf of the township using the township's name or email address unless expressly authorized by the CAO, posting unauthorized communications with the media concerning official township business, posting confidential details of any official investigations, such that disclosure of that information would violate federal, state, or local law, posting statements or images by police personnel that constitute conduct unbecoming an officer, including but not limited to racial, ethnic, or religious disparagement. And finally, any social media from the township employees or appointed officials from any device or township equipment will be prohibited if posted, including but not limited to hate speech, slander, pornography, etc. So this is was plagiarized from one of my other municipalities, Upper Moreland Township, and it was Upper Moreland Township is fortunate to have the same labor council as Upper Darby does. So it was reviewed by John McLaughlin's law firm there, and passed actually by their board of commissioners recently. And this is public knowledge. They, like many other municipalities, had issues with police officers posting racially insensitive comments, and was investigated by the Inquirer and led to discipline. Through that whole process, Upper Moreland realized that their social media policy was antiquated, so they wanted to beef it up. And my firm worked on this along with John McLaughlin's law firm there, and I brought it over here to Upper Darby for discussion.
Great, thank you very much. Councilwoman Phillips, do you want to weigh in since your committee discussed it at length?
Yeah. So yeah, we as with the social with equipment, we discussed this, and we came into agreement about it because you know, social media plays a big part in our township, you know, so we want to be careful. So because we don't want to get sued as a township, you know, so, and again, I think it's a standard, well, it's a little bit more than standard, but I think we all agreed upon it, and I think it's a pretty tight ordinance. So hopefully you guys will agree and approve it also.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone from any council members that have any questions or concerns on this ordinance? Councilman Wagner? Go ahead. You turn your mic on. Councilman Wagner, your mic's still off. There you go.
Sorry about that. I really just had a couple of questions about it. One, does this policy apply to personally owned devices, or is it strictly limited to devices owned and controlled by the township?
It can be personally owned devices. because those postings could reflect upon the township.
And my other question is, does it apply to, well, how about this? How is the term employee defined? Is it strictly paid employees? Would it include, does it include elected officials? Does it include appointed officials?
It specifically does not include elected officials because people brought that to my attention, and I strongly discourage that from a First Amendment standpoint, and the fact that I didn't think an ordinance like that would hold muster in court. My definition of employees would be, I don't know, anybody essentially working full-time for the township. So we can go ahead and define employees more robustly, if you like, but that's how I would have interpreted an employee.
Oh, there are part-time employees.
Let's see.
There are part-time employees for the township, especially during the summer, seasonal employees for the summer, for sanitation workers, and for camps when we do have camps. So I would think any employee.
Yeah, the policy also affects Upper Darby Township appointed officials, so it would be me or Vince or anybody related to that. I guess we could add in full and part-time employees if you like, you know?
I personally wasn't suggesting that we add or change anything necessarily. I was just asking questions there.
Yeah, no.
I will tell you that this is not meant to quarrel with you at all, Mr. Solicitor. It's just a concern, that's all. I recognize the ordinance as drafted says that it is not designed to violate the First Amendment. You'd probably agree with me, though, that that might not be up to us. Some court could someday be deciding whether or not this violates the First Amendment, in fact, regardless of whether we say it's not designed to do that. I've just got concerns about that.
No, I definitely understood, and that same conversation came up in Upper Moreland, and McLaughlin was president, and in his estimation, this passed muster. I haven't looked at it that closely in that, but that was his take. But
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other council members? Councilman Gwynn?
Just want to confirm, would this also include the union employees? I assume?
Yes.
Councilman Hafiz?
Yeah, the way I'm reading it is, it seems like a social media policy that's not, with the details, very somewhat common. Any employer you may work with, you being an employee, you have access to information that the general public may not have access to. And then the general public trusting you as an employee of that corporation or government entity, your word holds weight. And it's important for the longevity of either the township or even a corporation in the private sector to maintain a policy like this for longevity of the township, really.
Thank you. Any other council member have a question or a concern? Okay, seeing none. Councilman Phillips, would you like this to move forward to the agenda?
Yes, I would like for it to move forward to the agenda.
Okay, great. Great, thank you. And our next ordinance is ordinance number 3079. And if Solicitor Kilkenny can give us a brief on this ordinance.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Yep.
I lost Zoom for a second. Here we go. Yep. Okay. 3079. Section 203 meetings of the Township Administrative Code is hereby amended as follows by adding paragraphs D, E, F, and G. D, council shall have 2 publicly advertised voting meetings per month that are compliant with the Home Rule Charter, the Administrative Code of Upper Darby Township, all duly enacted ordinances of Upper Darby Township, and laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in the United States. E, the first voting meeting shall be a workshop format in which council committees shall meet as a whole and discuss proposed ordinances and resolutions and matters within their jurisdiction of their committee. If a majority of the committee members are satisfied with the proposed ordinances and resolutions, they may ask a quorum of council assembled at the workshop meeting to vote to advertise the proposed ordinance and or move forward the resolution for final action at a future council meeting. The first voting meeting is intended to be a workshop format whereby final action on an ordinance or resolution is discouraged and reserved for emergency circumstances only. F, the second voting meeting shall be a public meeting whereby a quorum of council shall take action on the advertised ordinances or the recommended resolutions. G, Upper Darby Township Council and residents will maintain professional respect for each other. Council encourages free speech. However, civility is required, which would prohibit threats, profanity, scandalous, impertinent, and redundant comment, or any comment the discernible purpose of which is to disrupt or prevent the conduct of the business of the meeting. All ordinances or parts thereof are hereby repealed. The provision of this ordinance is declared to be severable. That's the reading of the ordinance.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Billups, would you like to talk a little bit more about the discussion that the committee had on this ordinance?
Sure. We worked hard on this ordinance for a couple of hours. We had some disagreement about some wording, but we worked it out, and I think this is best overall for council and for the residents of Upper Darby. So I hope that you will see it for what it's intended for. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any council members that have questions or concerns? Councilman Silva? I see Don and Tom as well.
At our previous meeting, I think we had over an hour or so of public comment. I think that having 2 public meetings per month will help. Will give our residents more of an opportunity to reach out to us in that way. So I think that'll be a benefit. I think it also, it's not really clearly spelled out like the purpose of the first meeting or the second meeting of the month. So I think this will help us to kind of establish more of a pattern. And again, the first public meeting is not to pass anything, but simply to give us the ability to advertise it, which I think is which I don't know. I mean, I think that would help streamline the process a little bit, but also to give the residents another opportunity to reach out. So, you know, I look forward to that.
Great, thank you. Councilman Barnett?
Thank you. I do agree that it does create a better opportunity for the public to participate. You know, I'm very happy about that. The question I have, let me make it as a statement. It appears that we can discuss an ordinance among council for the first time and actually vote the same evening to advertise. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just a little concerned about that it really is asking us who are perhaps not on a committee that has worked on an ordinance, and we as non-committee members have not been able to develop a good understanding of the purpose or the intricacies of an ordinance, but yet we're being asked to vote on it. Second point or question is, if it appears to create an opportunity for resolutions to discuss them for the first time at this kind of a meeting, the first meeting, and actually adopt those resolutions, which certainly gives no time for us as council persons not involved with the specific committee to understand the purpose or have an opportunity to study the effects of a resolution.
So actually, Don, I know Solicitor will weigh in on this as well. As far as your two questions, on the first comment that you made, the making it a public meeting would actually also give the residents an opportunity to have a voice in the wording of the ordinances, where currently they don't have an opportunity at all until the public hearing, which is way farther down the line and more financially increases in financial burden on the township for if a ordinance is tabled at that point in time, that the advertisement of it increases the financial burden on the township. But by having the first Wednesday of the month as a meeting in which we can advertise an ordinance, it also makes it a public meeting so residents can weigh in on the wording of the ordinances as well. We have been working on we weren't so successful this weekend, but getting ordinances to council members, hopefully Friday, if not over the weekend, so you have an opportunity to read the ordinances prior to the first Wednesday of the month. And then, using this, we would use this meeting as the discussion to understand and finalize the wording before it would officially have its first reading, and then thusly a motion to advertise. And as to your question about the resolution, resolutions would be treated the same way as the ordinances. The only resolutions, from my understanding, and Solicitor will confirm this in a moment, is that if it's only for emergency purposes, would be actually vote anything that was emergency only, that needed, like if there's a grant that was due tomorrow and we had to vote on it that night in order to get that grant, that was the only type of circumstance where we would actually vote on something that, of that type. That the intent was to do the same thing with the resolutions, discuss them, adjust the wording, and have them move to the third Wednesday of the month for the actual vote of them. But Solicitor Kilkenny, can you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I put that language in specifically to delineate kind of the last sentence in E. The first voting meeting is intended to be a workshop format, but whereby final action on ordinance or resolution is discouraged and reserved for emergency circumstances only. So although, as you said, Council President, you could vote on an emergency situation, that should never be the ordinary course of business.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Great. And then Councilman Wagner, you had a question or concern?
Thank you. I have a concern. My concern primarily has to do with paragraph G, which I think is simply too broad and is too subject to subjective interpretation. This basically says that council will maintain professional respect for each other. The term professional respect itself could be subject to differing definitions, but it goes much further than that. Civility is required. It prohibits things that should be prohibited. I don't doubt that, threats and profanity, etc. But on the other hand, it goes on to say redundant comment or comment the discernible purpose of which is to disrupt, etc. Who makes these decisions? Who makes the decision as to whether something is redundant or whether it's or what its discernible purpose is? Does the solicitor decide that? Does the president of council decide it? Does all council have to decide it? I think this leaves us wide open to the threat that we have violated the First Amendment in a host of different situations. I don't like this section at all, and as written, I certainly can't vote for it.
So I'm going to react to the redundant part. The redundant aspect has to do with Robert's Rules of Order, and Robert's Rules of Order clarifies that the lack of when you're discussing and debating an issue, that you should not keep repeating yourself, that it should be new issues being brought to the table. And once it gets to the point that people are just repeating themselves, then the conversation is over. And that's from Robert's Rules of Order. Solicitor Kilkenny, would you like to weigh in? And I see Ms. Phillips, Councilwoman Phillips, I do see you, but
Sure. Per this, it would be the council president that's required to keep order in a meeting. As far as the redundancy goes, the redundant comment of individuals, a lot of this is unfortunately or fortunately a art and not exactly a science. So obviously anybody wants to keep out anything that's preventing the township from doing business, and setting some rules to go ahead and do so, I think is personally prudent. Any kind of rules of order can always be challenged. That's I guess the world we live in that regard, in the public arena. But none of these, this rule per G is nothing that divergent from what other municipalities have.
thank you. Councilwoman Phillips.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Wagner, I hear you. So would you have another suggestion of how it should be written?
I'd want to think about that. I don't want to just react to it now.
Okay.
Right now, I would eliminate subsection G. I don't think we need it. And I think it leaves us open to challenge, even if 100 other municipalities have the same provision until a court rules on it. That's basically in the wind. I think a strong argument could be made in a given situation that I'm not even going to imagine right now, that we're violating the First Amendment if we stop someone from speaking on the ground that we think the discernible purpose of what you're saying is to disrupt this body, or we think what you're saying is redundant when that person says, no, it's for emphasis and so on. It just leaves a lot of room, too much room for interpretation, and I'm very uncomfortable with it.
I hear you, but I don't think that we're stopping people from saying anything, because we value people's opinion. So, and I think we should have something in place so they can speak. But just like with anything, I don't think characters should be assassinated.
I'm with you there. I'm not interested in assassinating anybody's character, and certainly not by my comments now. And that's not what I'm talking about. But in any event, I've expressed my opinion. You
okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any questions or concerns? Anybody? Okay. Councilwoman Phillips, what do you wish to do?
We can put it on the agenda, Council President,
okay,
for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Councilman Wagner, if you have some suggestions on rewording of that paragraph, please send it to us so that we can look at revamping that. Because we have between now and the next meeting for the first reading of the ordinance. So if we want to make some adjustments to it, this is the time we can do it.
And I appreciate that. I really do. I really would prefer the deletion of paragraph G. That's the suggestion I would make.
I understand. Unfortunately, I mean, the other council members of the committee can weigh in. This was a paragraph that they spent a lot of time on. And all agreed upon. So, you know, but that's why I empower you to send us some wording so that we can incorporate your concerns, if you're willing.
It's not that I'm unwilling. I think I already told you what it is that I would suggest we do, but whatever. I wanted my opinion on this known, and it is.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your concerns. Okay, up next, we have Planning, Zoning, Building Code Committee. Councilman Gwynn is the chairman. Members are Councilwoman Phillips, Councilman Bonnet, and Councilman Tunis Jr. Councilman Gwynn.
Does anybody from the committee have anything to bring forward to this body at this time? Does anybody from council have anything to bring forward?
Councilman Wagner does.
Tom?
I do. I attended the most recent meeting of the zoning hearing board, and something happened there which I found very, very troubling. The zoning hearing board approved an application for a group home on Lindale Avenue in Upper Darby in Drexel Hill. And it was freely conceded by all involved in this discussion, including, as far as I could tell, the solicitor for the zoning hearing board, and I think all the voting members who were there were only 3 of them who were present. Everybody seemed to agree that the application violated a clear provision of our existing zoning code. The lawyer representing the applicant argued that this particular provision was illegal because it discriminated against the disabled. I'm not speaking in favor of discriminating against anybody here, but I don't think it's appropriate for the zoning hearing board simply to decide on its own, application by application, what parts of the zoning code it's going to enforce and which parts it's going to decide are illegal. That is a slippery slope. We could end up with no zoning ordinance at all in fairly short measure. If there's a particular provision of the zoning ordinance that is illegal or that the zoning hearing board or its solicitor believe are inappropriate, they bring that to the town council. We have a process by which the zoning ordinance can be amended. That process would include public hearings. It would include the appropriate people weighing in on it. Simply to say, well, we think this particular section is illegal, so we're going to ignore it, I think is inappropriate. And that is precisely what they did. So I'm asking our zoning committee to look into this, perhaps communicate with the solicitor of the zoning hearing board and express to them, it's not the substance of what we're doing here that we're concerned about, it's the process. We've got a zoning ordinance. The township ought to defend it unless and until it is amended.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to reply to that? I was listening at the time of the zoning board meeting at the time. If I'm not mistaken, in the past, there have been times that zoning boards previously would, give variances would approve variances for zoning for different things. That's kind of what they do, right? I mean, yeah. Give a variance if they find that whoever is applying, they agree with what they're doing. So,
but I didn't mean to interrupt you. I don't doubt that zoning boards grant variances all the time, right. But in this instance, this was different. The zoning board said, we're aware that our zoning ordinance is clearly violated here, yet we think that provision's illegal, we're not going to follow it. I think that's inappropriate and should not be allowed to go unchallenged.
Council President Wentz, may I say something?
Yes, please.
Group homes are a very litigious area. I will contact Mr. Musso, our zoning hearing board solicitor, tomorrow and find out what his concerns are with our ordinance. I have not looked at that per se, but in other municipalities that I represent, I've been challenged on group homes, and it's often a sense of litigation. The case law changes monthly in this area, and so if Upper Darby is out of date, we should look at that ordinance and tighten it up to one, make it fair to the handicap, but to protect our residents as well. So I will reach out to Mr. Musso, get his concerns, and look at the ordinance, and perhaps some suggested changes, if that's appropriate, should probably go back through committee.
And if I may, I appreciate that, Mr. Kilkenny. I really do. I would appreciate it, though, if you would make your conversation a little broader with him. it's the entire subject of picking and choosing sections of the zoning ordinance that the zoning hearing board is just going to decide to ignore because in their opinion, that particular provision is illegal. Who knows what the next provision is that they're going to decide is illegal in their opinion, and they therefore find themselves empowered to ignore it. So I'm hoping your conversation with him might go a little broader.
Okay.
Right.
I
Councilman,
think we had,
we actually, Councilman Silva had his hand up before Councilman Barnett. And so I have Councilman Silva and then Barnett and then Burke. Just so you know who
I
I'm.
saw them too.
Okay.
I do actually agree with Mr. Wagner on the fact that if they have a concern with an ordinance, I hope they would bring it to us. But I don't know about this broader, I mean, the purpose of the zoning board is to make decisions about bestowing variances for any project that may not fit into zoning. I mean, otherwise, if everyone had to follow all the rules as they were, then I don't know what the zoning board purpose would be. But I do agree. Like if there is like a concern with something, then it would be better to amend it township wide, and then that way you don't have to try to work around it or apply for a variance for something that's unjust or that they feel should be corrected. But as far as this broader concept of not allowing the zoning board to issue variances, well, then it seems like what's the point? So that's all I had to say on that.
Councilman,
Thank you,
Clinton,
Mr.
you want to?
Silva. But the point of the issue is we craft the ordinances, we craft the laws and stipulated the items get approved by council and they are to follow those things. If they have us or desire us to change it, then it should come back to council for that change.
But they're called
Mr. Byrd?
variances. They bestow variances.
Yes.
I mean, that's what they mean. They mean they don't have to like certain parts or whatever for a project sake. That's why it's called a variance. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but that's why it's called a variance.
Thank you for your information.
Okay.
Mr. Burt.
Actually, Councilman Barnett was before Burke, sorry. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Councilman Barnett.
Thank you. On that point, as I understand it, and Solicitor Kilkenny, maybe you can weigh in on this. And to some degree, I think Bob Wynn covered this, but it's council's function to change the meaning of any provision of our zoning ordinance. It's not the zoning board's position to do so. And it sounds to me, and I've had some conversation about this particular instance, that there was an actual provision that was being violated in no uncertain terms, that the solicitor basically publicly advised the zoning hearing board that perhaps that provision was not a legitimate provision, but he did not give them the opportunity to deliberate that, at least in private, which they should have had the opportunity. Any thoughts on that, Solicitor?
Yeah, I'm not going to second guess Mr. Amuso. He's an experienced zoning hearing board solicitor, but I'll talk to him and I will get some feedback.
Thank you.
And then Councilman Vince, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say, I mean, I think Councilman Wagner made a number of excellent points, and I attended the zoning hearing board meeting as well. The zoning hearing board did debate the issue in question, both in executive session as well as at the public meeting, and they were advised that they would likely lose on appeal, and so they chose to grant the variance. So the only small clarification I would say is the full zoning hearing board did debate the issue both publicly and privately, and the township did not exactly choose to not defend the ordinance, the zoning hearing board chose to grant the variance to avoid the litigation that they were advised they would likely come out on the losing end of. I do think it's a matter for council to address, absolutely, because you don't want that happening over and over and over again. So there may need to be a change to the zoning code, and that would certainly be the business of council, but just a few minor sort of clarifications there.
Thank you. Councilman Burke?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
Yep, couple questions. Vince, thanks for what you just said, but I'm under the understanding this house, the gentleman that paid for this house paid well over market value. The house was built and designed inside for this. This is the gentleman's second house in our township. I believe they will not pay school tax and property tax. I believe it's a nonprofit organization, which is a business in a residential neighborhood. I have a problem here to the tune of about $30,000 for these two houses or two businesses for the school tax and the township tax to the residents of Upper Darby. It's a big overtaking. This could happen tomorrow somewhere else. It seems to me it was premeditated that he was going to pay for this house over and above with the construction guy doing the work inside to design the house. I don't think it's fair to the residents of Upper Darby that this goes through. And I would like counsel or a solicitor to explain to me, how can a business operate a business inside a residential street? This house is in the middle of a block.
Sure. The definitions for the disabled are contained in the American with Disabilities Act and the Fair Housing Act. And those are put forward by Congress and interpreted by the courts. All of this often comes down to the definition of family. And if a group of individuals is living as a functional family unit within a home, meaning they cook on premises, they entertain on premises, that they, according to the American with Disabilities Act and the Fair Housing Act, people have a right, the disabled, to live as a functional family unit, and they may receive nonprofit status for that, which of course hurts taxpayer the coffers of Upper Darby Township. I will have to look at
Sean, you went out.
And find out where we are at. But if I can tell you, if we do violate the ADA or the Fair Housing Act, we will get sued because it happens to municipalities all the time. I will be happy to go ahead, speak with Mr. Amusa, see what his concerns were, then look at our ordinance and bring it to council. The ADA and the Fair Housing Act, unfortunately, are matters much beyond Upper Darby's control. That would have to be either an act of Congress or a different interpretation by the courts. You can put reasonable conditions on the granting of that related to security concerns on properties, but you have to be very careful not to discriminate. Also, too, a lot of other municipalities in the past had tried to put group homes in institutional districts or commercial districts. All of those ordinances were struck down. The reason being is the goal from the ADA is to have handicapped individuals integrate with society. So I am unfortunately giving you an answer you probably don't want to hear, but we can look at our ordinance and see where it is and see where we can tighten it legally.
Just want to be clear about, more about the money. It's not about the ADA or, Disability Act. It's more about that I believe that paying close to $40,000-$50,000 over the market value for this house, that it was scheduled. The house was done basically before the variance was granted. Doesn't look good. Let's forget about the Disability Act and everything like that. It just seems like it was premeditated. Paying more money, and he has a house, I think, 2 blocks around the corner. It's a lot of loss to our taxpayers. Thank you.
Vince, and then Bob.
Yeah, just really quickly, nothing, I don't disagree with anything that Councilman Burke said, and nothing that I said contradicted or was meant to contradict Councilman Burke. The point is, right now, the zoning hearing board doesn't have the tools that they would need to stop this kind of thing from happening. So, and I think a sort of a more succinct kind of common parlance way of saying what the solicitor was just saying is, council needs to decide if they want to change the ordinance and give the zoning hearing board the tools. Then council needs to do that, because the taxation issue is important, but it's not the purview of the zoning board. So yeah, that's all.
I see you, Tom. Bob's next. Go ahead, Bob.
My request is that the solicitor come back to us with his recommendations and with the administration to the zoning committee to discuss the issues that are at hand with this, to see how we can craft and improve our ordinance and laws to be both facilitating to the ADA community, but also to keep our laws in line with where they should be, so that the zoning board has an easier path towards a resolution that's consistent for all of us.
Great. And Councilman Wagner? ahead.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
So I'm just asking that the administration also assist us in regarding this.
Yes, and Councilman Siddiq did have his hand up. Go ahead, Councilman Siddiq. You have to unmute yourself, Councilman Siddiq. There you go.
Yeah, I was looking at what kind of business you're talking about, like in residence area.
It's not a normal. It's not like a normal business. It's only considered a business because the people running the group home is a 501c3. They're a nonprofit, and that's what puts them into a business type situation. So it's not like a hair salon or anything. It's a group home for disabled people to live in.
It's a care facility.
Care facility. So
they're 501c or
501c3.
501c3.
Yeah.
But those they are getting the grant from the state, right?
What do you mean?
I mean, they are non-profit, but they're making money other way. Am I right?
I don't know if it's I don't know the specifics of the particular company itself or 501c3 itself. If I don't have the answer to your question.
Thank you.
There often are have 501c3 designation, and they often do receive federal or state subsidies for care, obviously. But the way to challenge that, which is very, very difficult, is, the 501c3 status is not in zoning. It's more on an assessment in front of the Delaware County Board of Assessment, and to look at that. But I can tell you, we would have to get, we'd have to get some individual information, and those cases are difficult to win, just being blunt.
Okay. Councilman Hafiz Tunis, did you have something you wanted to say? Thought I saw your hand.
No, Chairman Nguyen said it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? All right, seeing none, continue on, Bob. Your mic is off.
Sorry. That concludes the report
Great.
for the zoning and building.
Okay, great. Next up is the Municipal Service Licenses and Public Works Committee. Councilman Burke is chairman, and members are Councilman Siddiq, Wagner, and Tunis Jr. Councilman Burke?
Does anybody from the committee have anything to bring forward tonight?
Councilman Siddiq has his hand up. Go ahead. There you go.
Okay. So we heard from Allison that from June 15, we're implementing the parking enforcement. It's going to be the township wide or the 69th Street area. Right now, we don't have any parking meter enforcement. Am I right? For the whole
Correct.
township? So from 15, it's going to be all over the township.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Siddiq?
Thank you. Yes, that's all. I want to make sure.
I have one question, Vince. It's really a question, I guess, for Chris McSween. We will be reopening, I guess, the 69th Street District. Will we have to go back to inspect everything? And does that mean we're doing in-person inspection? And also, when will we resume in-person inspection for new businesses trying to open up in the township?
So I think it would depend on exactly what happened to the business and what work was being done. But yes, I could certainly imagine circumstances where there would need to be an inspector based on the kind of work. And even though we have a reduced and staggered schedule, we have been doing some on-site inspections. We made a plan on the DaVita Dialysis Center to make sure that we could keep inspections moving for them. So anyone, it's a little, I mean, I'll admit, it's a little more cumbersome than you would prefer. You really have to make an appointment, and depending on your inspector's schedule, you may have to wait an extra day. But we are new business owners and people doing work, making improvements, et cetera, should be able to get inspections now.
Well, we have a new business in the first district that we trying to get it opened up, and we basically need somebody to come out. One of our inspectors have been out, and then he's emailed, and we just need somebody else to come out and give him a run through to see if he's clear, ready to go. So he's waiting a couple days. He emailed last Thursday. I think he was told we weren't doing in-person inspections, more or less, right now.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, let's follow up offline tomorrow, and I'll see if we can get it taken care of for you.
Yeah, I told him just wait till the end of the week. If not, I would talk to you. But, you know, with this 69th Street, I know we're going to have to go back in and make sure everything's safe for the residents to shop in the 69th Street area too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Councilman Hafiz, did you have a question?
Yes. This is also for CAO Ragioni. As I remember, we were told prior, maybe the first May meeting, or it may have been prior to that in the April meeting, that the township is going to take steps to relax meter ticketing, as well as ticketing outside of any safety zones. And if residents may have gotten ticketed, is there a way that they can either show the administration that they got ticketed, or would it be coming from the police? I just had a slew of residents ask me this. They believe they've been ticketed incorrectly, and they were told that ticketing was going to be paused during COVID-19. So I was wondering, maybe would it be like it may have been in a zone that the police may have ticketed them?
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. I think it's certainly possible that the police issued a ticket. And, you know, there was a few months ago, maybe March, April, some gray area where we were slowly relaxing ticketing enforcement. You know, really in the last month, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 weeks, folks should not have been getting a meter ticket violation. We really were trying to do safety violations only. So I think if folks really feel like they received the ticket in error, then, you know, that's something that I think we could look at. Yeah, I think that's something that we could look at.
And what would be the best course of just going through the request line, or what would be the best action to like address it?
Yeah, I think if you put it through the request line, that would be very helpful. And if they mention this conversation, and I will speak with Parking Director Coles tomorrow to make sure that she knows that we might have some of these questions coming in, and her and I will just work through, you know, what is and isn't sort of a questionable ticket. You know, sometimes people don't know what is and isn't a safety violation. Some of them are very clear, some of them aren't. But really meter ticket violations, there should not have been meter ticket violations anytime in the sort of very past.
A question, aren't there a form of appeal process within the parking ticket realm on the ticket itself, a way that explains how you can appeal a ticket?
My concern there, and I don't want to say too much because I haven't looked at what that process is.
Okay. Right.
Very recently, but the magisterial court wouldn't know
Right.
what Upper Darby's administrative policy is. So
Okay.
to
Gotcha.
sort of handle it administratively, you know, hopefully we're not talking about too many. I mean, we really have tried to eliminate meter enforcement. Although, to be clear, it is starting up again, and then that's why we want to give people notice that ticketing enforcement is coming back.
Right.
And just a question for a little bit of clarity. Because the township may be relaxing meter ticket, it doesn't mean Upper Darby Police relax ticketing, right?
Oh no, I mean the police should have also known. I mean, this is kind of something that we're working on. You know, the police department is a department within the township government, just like parking enforcement, just like public works. So absolutely, the focus township wide should have been on safety violations. Yeah.
Great. I believe Bob had a question. Go ahead.
Just as a general, this is just a general comment. Public should know that we are.
You froze, Bob. Bob, you're frozen.
Township will decide what they wish to do, what they wish to enforce.
Bob, can you start your sentence over again because you froze in the middle of the beginning?
Sorry.
That's okay.
I just wanted to be clear that we as council people can't help or change a ticket. We do not have that power. And that the individuals have to pursue it on their own in terms of the administration, what they have gotten and how the administration wishes to enforce it or not enforce it. That's their call.
Thank you. Okay. Continue, Councilman Burke.
Does anybody else from council have anything to bring forward? So I guess we'll conclude that report. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Finance and Appropriations Committee. Committee Chair is Councilman Gwynn. Members are Councilwoman Phillips, Councilman Burke, and Councilman Silva. Go ahead, Councilman Gwynn.
Good evening. I want to say that our committee will probably try to meet together to go over things, particularly in light of the coronavirus and how it's impacted the township. I need the information that the administration and the treasurer to get things up and going and combined so we get a true look as to what we can really expect to see in the future, as well as how businesses are going to need help and what, if anything, we can do to assist them. Beyond that, I don't have anything specific to ask or bring to the administration. I don't know. Does anybody on the committee wish to bring anything up?
We do
Anybody?
have, sorry, go ahead.
Anybody on council wish to bring anything up to this committee? Anybody in the administration wish to bring anything up?
We have Treasurer David Heyman, who's going to give us a report.
Thank
So
you.
David, go ahead.
Good evening, Council President Wentz, members of council. I put together a quick treasurer's report. The numbers are hot off the press, so I just got them at about 3 o'clock today and put this together, but I'm going over it a number of times in my head, and it looks pretty, I think it's pretty solid. So the report this month is going to look at revenue that's been collected year to date, what the expenditures have been, and what it looks like looking forward as to what's been uncollected, what expenditures are on the horizon, and how we look. And then finally, I have the bank balances here to look at how solvent we are, how many months do we have in the bank as far as the general fund is concerned, looking forward. So very quickly, in May, we brought in about $5.3 million. Year to date, that brings us up to revenue collected about $58 million, leaving us with about 20 million left to collect for the rest of the year for the next 7 months. This represents collections at this point of just under 71% of our anticipated revenue budget. On the expenditure side, in May, the township expended $3.4 million in the general fund. If we look at the year-to-date plus encumbrances, we have $31,678,000, and what that means is we are expected to spend, according to the budget, about $50,627,000 through the remaining 7 months. And with the anticipated expenditures of that $50 million, that's about 61% of the budget remaining to be expended. So those numbers, when you put them together, look pretty good. The revenues are coming in. Now, again, my difficulty with this is I don't know, what may have been discussed, but changes may have been made, or what plans are being made that may all be different from this anticipated budget. But just looking at these numbers, it looks pretty good. If we look at that from a bank standpoint in our bank accounts, the general fund bank balances, and there's multiple bank balances. We have about $36 million of cash available in those funds. And if we add that additional anticipated $20 million revenues to that, from my standpoint, we're looking pretty good. Our average monthly cash need for these next 7 months is about $7 million a month, which means we currently have in the bank about 5 months looking forward already covered. So that's what it looks like as of this afternoon.
So just one question or I kept unmuting myself, sorry.
You're muted again, Laura.
I know, okay. I moved my mouse away, so I shouldn't be muted again. So in the past, around October is when we would have huge expenses for payments into pensions and things like that, where we would influx to like almost a 10 million, 9 to 10 million in the expenses for that particular month. So just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, but they are part of the budget. That's not something that's on top of the planned budget. So the $82 million budget is included in here.
Right. Okay. Just wanted, you know, sorry, just have a cat adding itself to the conversation. Sorry. Tail.
We have two of them that we've kept out of it so far.
Oh, well, you're lucky. You're lucky. At least he didn't do any typing, so that's good. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure because I knew that was an influx that we have coming in the near future, and just to make sure that we do have the funds to cover that part of the equation. Okay, cool. Does anyone have any questions or other questions or concerns for our treasurer? And our solicitor has his hand up too. So.
Yes. Council, I'll leave it to the counselor first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Siddiqui.
This is good to know his report. All I want to thanking him because we never get this kind of report my last 5 years. So thank you so much, David Heyman, for your report.
Thank you, sir.
And we need some better report, more strong report next month.
I'll make them up, sir. Just email me what you want to hear and I'll put it in there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lisa.
Councilman Gwynn.
Yeah.
Lisa Faralia had requested something.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Council, can we hear from the solicitor?
No, let council.
Okay, sorry. Councilwoman Faralia.
Yes, I wanted to know if the treasurer knows what was in the fund balance that was carried over from 2019 to 2020.
I believe, and correct me, I might reach out to Vince on this. I think it was somewhere around 2 million, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Vince? You remember those numbers? I mean, I can pull the report up if you want an exact number, but I think it was around 2.
I actually thought it was closer to 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you.
But we'll double check and get back to you with an exact number.
Thank you.
And Treasurer Heyman, if you're able to, when you get a chance to send out that report to me so I can send it to council just so that they have it in their little hands.
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be in your email,
Okay.
Council President. If it's
Okay,
not, I'll send it again.
No,
Okay.
it may be there. I just didn't get a chance to check just before the meeting. So, thank you. Solicitor Kilkenny?
Yes, thank you very much, President Wentz and Chair Gwynn. I don't want to put her on the spot, but this might be the appropriate time to do it. I know in our agenda call, Council President and Mayor, we went over potential BPT regulations related to e-collect and how that would be administered. I know we had thought we would discuss it at this council meeting, or at least initially talk about it. And I know Ms. Richardson had worked with John McMullen and Mike Hill from eCollect in crafting these regulations for when we start enforcing BPT after the COVID crisis, wanes. And I don't know if Ms. Richardson wanted to give a brief explanation. Perhaps then we can share a copy of those regulations with the council committee. Maybe might be the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Sister Richardson?
Thank you. So as Solicitor Kilkenny shared, we have been working on regulations for the ordinance that that manages or dictates the business privilege taxes for Upper Darby. So section 9G of the ordinance allows or authorizes the director of finance, which is John McMullen, to make rules and regulations consistent with his ordinance. As council may remember, earlier this year, I believe it was in January, Mike Hill from eCollect was appointed to be the tax collector. That being said, when you appoint a tax collector, or you, there has to be rules and regulations of which they're to abide by. That's required, by general statement, but also Taxpayer Bill of Rights under the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania requires it. So there has to be some rules and regulations that set forth a couple of things. I just would like to go over those things with council. The first thing is that there's a required notice that entitles taxpayers to receive a written explanation of their rights with regard to an audit, an appeal, enforcement, or refund. That's information that has to be provided to the taxpayer initially. There are a few things in terms of procedure, how a procedure will be conducted if there's an audit or administrative review. Now, there's also definitions that are provided in terms of administrative review. And just for clarity, it's a administrative review discussed a lot. I would like to just define it quickly. Is a process used by the finance department or his or her designee, which would also be eCollect, to receive and make determinations about decisions taxpayers, about assessments, determinations, or refunds regarding the business privilege tax. So it's just basically kind of looking at someone's books, more or less. Beyond that, a time period. The time period that is looked at if a taxpayer has filed a business privilege tax return is 3 years. So if we have filed, we can only go back 3 years. Now, if a business has never filed, then that 3-year time period does not apply. A lot of municipalities kind of push back about that because they're saying, well, what if someone never, in those cases, the time period doesn't apply. So I just like to make that very, very clear. Also, there's another aspect, which is called apportionment. So any taxpayer has a place of business in the township and outside of the township, the receipts have to be apportioned to the township for the township to collect. But there is a method in it, so that's 7 of the business privilege tax regulations, because of, again, we can't double tax someone. So if receipts have to go somewhere, so either they're in, I don't know, we'll say Springfield, wherever, and you also have place of business in Darby, receipts, and part of that calculation is there a part of the transaction that's connected with Upper Darby Township? Also, the council has the right to take a look at a taxpayer's federal tax information to ensure that it kind of lines up. There is also the administrative review process, which I think a lot of council members may. One of those things is that a taxpayer, if they receive an assessment, they okay, let's see. How's my sound? Is my sound? I'm getting a message that my sound is not that great. Has it improved or no?
It keeps going in and out.
Okay.
Definitely goes in and out. I mean, we've caught a lot of the words, but it's definitely been going in and out.
Because I will try to speak up, and hopefully the gaps are not there anymore. I don't know.
I did mute a bunch of us so that your quality of sound was as good as it could be.
I'm gonna have to have a mic, I guess, more at some point, just have like but it's fine. So just to kind of clarify, and this is actually the last point, is that there is an administrative review process. So if a taxpayer has a problem with an assessment that they receive, and they kind of gone through their conversation with the finance director or eCollect, and they're saying, you know what, I still don't like this assessment, they have the right and the privilege to appeal to the to what we consider the tax review board, which would be actually the finance committee of council. So that's where it kind of ends from there. And then if they still don't like what the finance committee of council has done, they have the right to appeal to the Delaware County Court of Common Pleas. So that's pretty much the overview. Like I said, we worked with John McMullen, and I also had the opportunity to work with Mike Hill. I believe that the mayor and Vince have a copy, and I believe that we can disseminate it to the appropriate.
And one thing I did want to bring up, Courtney, and an excellent explanation, and I know council has to take a look at this. Although a committee of council can act as the reviewing body, and most municipalities, they actually appoint an independent hearing officer. So they're a little removed from the process. It's usually a lawyer or a person that's familiar with tax law and regulations. And I think in almost all the municipalities we have as that have BPT and does the taxpayer bill of rights, they go through that process. So I just wanted to, it's a policy decision for council, but we would strongly recommend that perhaps you appoint a hearing officer, because it frankly depoliticizes that as well. People are just looking at the regulations and dealing with the law on the matter. So, okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. Awesome. So we do look forward to getting that information so that we can review it. So is that saying that we would need to have as an ordinance or a resolution? How does that get created as far as for them?
I believe it's regulations. We'll look at the charter more closely, but I think it's just a resolution, but we'll double check before it's sent on. Yep.
Okay, great.
And we'll share that with you to share with committee. Yep.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. Okay.
That concludes my report.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so up next is Public Health and Environmental Affairs Committee, Chairman Matt Silva, and members are Councilwoman Billups and Councilman Siddiq and Tunis Jr. And we have Councilman Silva, do you mind if we go into the ordinance first, and then we can do other future discussions of the committee after?
Absolutely, that's fine.
Okay, so can we get a reading on ordinance number 3080 by Solicitor Richardson?
Thank you, Councilor. President Wentz, thank you. So, President Wentz, just for clarification, this is the B ordinance, correct?
Yep.
Thank you. How is my sound? I was trying to fix my sound on the side, but I don't know how that sounds to you guys.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this is a ordinance 3080, an ordinance of Upper Darby Township, Delaware County, amending ordinance 2584, permitting the keeping of honeybee hives in the township, subject to certain conditions and regulations, repealing all inconsistent ordinances. Resolutions are parts thereof, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date. Just for clarification, Pennsylvania is one of the leading states in honey production and agricultural products associated with beekeeping throughout the United States. Gentle strains of honeybees can be maintained, and this is usually a concern for most, can be maintained within populated areas with reasonable densities without causing a nuisance if the bees are properly located and carefully managed. And the township, as a result, therefore desires to adopt regulations which permit beekeeping within the township, subject to certain regulations and conditions intended to avoid the creation of any nuisance with the association with beekeeping. So beekeeping, the ordinance 2584 entitled Beekeeping is amended as follows. There is the preamble that's provided in the ordinance is adopted and all of the findings therein. There are several definitions specifically talking about colonies. And then the purpose of the ordinance is the next section, which is providing certain requirements for beekeeping within the township to avoid issues which might otherwise be associated with beekeeping in populated areas. The standards of practice are outlined in the in section D, speaking more specifically about removable frames and that they should be kept in sound and usable, sound and usable condition. There's also a section regarding colony density based on the size of the lot, which is in section 2E, section E2. And then, so there's the colonies are to be inspected between the hours of 8 to 5 annually upon prior notice. And if there's a complaint, then of course more often. There are section G is for violation and penalties, fines of not less than $100 and no more than $1,000. There's section for repeal or severability, and the effective date is immediately upon passage. So it's a reading.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or concerns on ordinance number 3080? Councilman Barnett, I see your hand first.
Thank you very much. Just a curiosity question. What is the justification for doing this? Is there an issue around Upper Darby Township that needs to be addressed by this ordinance?
Yes, our original ordinance indicated that you had to have at least an acre of land in order to have any bee colonies. And I felt that I worked with the Public Health Committee look at this ordinance as far as the fact that we are actually in a pandemic and people are, there are two reasons. One, there's a pandemic side where people are not working and financially may not be able to afford things the way they used to. And therefore, a lot of people are growing vegetables and food for them to feed their family, where honey would be one of those, to be able to have honey would be one of those, a great way to improve their personal family and community. There's also the aspect of bees have been, the quantities of bees have been decreasing throughout our country and the world. And by having honeybees, we're helping to pollinate our plants throughout our community versus decreasing the bee population. So there were two sides of the equation, and looking at the ordinance, the original ordinance, it made it almost impossible for people to have bees in our township. So honeybees.
Well, just a follow-up question. Have we had any requests to change the property size requirements so people could have beehives on smaller properties?
Yes, we have.
And if so, how many have we had?
I've heard from a variety of people on this, requesting for over the last few years. Actually, a lot of different people have asked about a bee ordinance, and then once we discovered the limitations of the original bee ordinance, it prevented majority of people from being able to have it, because actually I don't know anyone, I don't know how many properties there are in Upper Darby Township that have a full acre of land. And I know it's definitely not on the Upper Darby side of Upper Darby Township, or I'm fairly certain.
Is there an overwhelming number of people that are requesting us to reduce the size of property so they can have beehives? I mean, is it now? Give me if you can, a sense of magnitude of this, justifying this particular ordinance. I mean, is it 10 people? Is it 100 people? What, you know?
I've heard from many people, and I don't think I think that our role is to update ordinances for our situation, and this is a needed update. I think, and Councilman Silva would like to weigh in, so I'll let him roll on that one. Go ahead, Councilman Silva.
Thank you. There's two sides to the honeybee thing as far as like the benefits of honeybees. So clearly, like, there's the possibility of creating honey, which is almost secondary. But like a larger community in Upper Darby Township, and people I've heard from as well, are actually, you know, growing fruits and vegetables in their yards, because we have, you know, some space anyway to do that. And the bees benefit that, and that I primarily, personally, I think that's like the major benefit. But there is also honey production even in the city of Philadelphia. That's so I mean, if an area as small as that, homes as small as that can safely do this, I don't quite see why Upper Darby could not. So I mean, is it, you know, I don't have a specific number of people that have requested this, but it has been a request, and generally I think it's something that, like Council President Wentz says, it does sort of address the issue of the time that, you know, that people are trying to sustenance farm from home for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is it provides a nice activity for themselves and their family, if, you know, maybe a slight distraction or whatever the case might be. So I think the primary function of this ordinance versus the previous ordinance is simply that it maintains a safe regulation of doing it, not simply just banning it. So it's also like a personal freedom issue where if people can responsibly do this, that they're able to. And I don't see how anybody could be against that. So that's
Thanks for the explanation. I appreciate it.
Okay, great. Councilwoman Faralia has her hand up. Go ahead, Councilwoman Faralia. There you go.
Yeah, so my question was, would they be required to have any kind of insurance?
Can the solicitors weigh in on that one? Is there insurance for beekeeping?
Insurance for everything.
I don't know. The only thing we can do is assume, but we can definitely look into it to answer the question a little bit more intelligently. So we can look into that.
Okay, so we'll check it out.
All right.
Okay. So next up we have Councilman Hafiz and then Councilman Burke have questions. So Councilman Hafiz.
Yeah. The way I look at this, and when it was brought up in the section of the 1 acre, I'm just thinking about in my district, where many of the residents in my district have gardens, beautiful gardens. If you ever take a trip through the 7th district, and a lot of them do use, like you said, they do grow vegetation and fruit in their gardens. And I just think that whether they would like it or not, I think they should have the opportunity to still make that choice. Just because they don't have an acre of land, if they want that freedom to have a beehive and they are under all the parameters that we set, I think they should be able to do that.
Thank you. And then Councilman Burke, and then Gwen. So Councilman Burke.
Yes, thank you. I need to be educated a little bit on this. How big is 2 colonies? How far away? You know, can it be done in the front yard? Does it have to be done in the backyard? Does it have to be done on a side yard if you're on a corner? I'm not 100% sure how big 2 colonies are and how far it has to be away from, you know, like in a row homes, you know, your postage stamp in the backyard, how far is it away from the property lines? I'm not 100% sure of the zoning.
So in the ordinance, if you look under B for definitions, under, sorry, I'm flipping my pages around. The colony definition at the top of page 3, the lot line of for 10 feet in either direction from the hive or contain the hive or hives in an enclosure at 6 feet in height. A flyaway barrier is not required if property adjoining the apiary lot line number 1 is undeveloped or is zoned agricultural, industrial, or is outside the township's limits, or 3 is a wildlife management area or naturalistic park land with no horse or foot trails located within 25 feet of the apiary lot line. The flyaway buffer shall comply with any applicable regulations of fences under the township's zoning ordinance and any other applicable ordinances. Does that help?
Do they have to get a permit for this? And will there be a fee for it? Court?
Listener?
Yeah.
Look at it, and there is no, there are some regulations in terms of what would have to be done, but there is no permit. Make a suggestion that the permit be added to it. There is some kind of work that's going to have to be done on the township side.
Okay, so we want to add a permit requirement to the ordinance. Okay.
Seems like there's a little bit of work that has to be done, just permit wise and a few other things. So I'm not sure if this is ready for July 15th, or maybe we can get it before. And
July 17th.
Or July 17th, I'm sorry. I don't have a problem, just a couple questions about permits and fees and inspection by our L&I to make sure they're inspected, that's all.
Okay, well, we can work on it and get it to committee and then get it out to council for a little more clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilman, and anyone else have any questions or concern? Councilman Gwynn?
Yes,
Yep.
I do. I just wanted to point out, I know you say we're going to maintain consistency with the other township ordinances, but specifically fences. Our fences in the front yards are limited to 4 feet, and there can be variances that are granted and periodically are, particularly depending upon the type of fence and how airy it is. But it's one of the items that struck me. It's not something that I feel be appropriate for a front yard. That's my feeling. I don't want to be stung by it. I'll just go along with everybody else and say that it needs a little bit more refinement.
So a clarification to the backyard?
Yeah.
Okay.
One more question, Laura.
Wait.
Yep, Wagner. Go ahead, Brian.
Just a clarification on the front yard / backyard. When you have a property that's on the corner, the side yard, sometimes some people believe that's part of a front yard. I'm just worried about some properties on a corner that has a fence all the way around. I believe where your address is your front yard. No, as a corner of a property, I'm just a little worried, that's all.
Some corner houses utilize 2 addresses on each side of the realm, so.
Okay, thank you.
Council President.
Yes, please go.
Code, there are all corner houses per the code actually have 2 front yards. It's per the Upper Darby zoning code, just for clarity.
Right, 2 front yards. Thank you for that clarification. So we have Councilman, we have Councilman Barnett, I saw you, and then I also saw Councilman Tunis and Councilman Wagner. I just want to create my little list before we end. Councilman Siddiq, before we continue. So Councilman Barnett.
Thank you.
Actually, Councilman Barnett, I'm sorry, you've already spoken. Can we hear from the other people who haven't spoken yet before we go back to you? Okay. So Councilman Tunis, go ahead.
Yeah, the whole back.
Oh, wait, Councilman Tunis, wait, I'm sorry, you have already spoken as well, so I'm gonna move you down the line as well, because Councilman Wagner.
I thought I could get away with that, sorry.
I know, I'm sorry, that was my bad. I was like, wait a second. So Councilman Wagner has not spoken yet. So go ahead, Councilman Wagner.
I'd be glad for Mr. Tunis to speak before me, but if you want me to, I'll get this over with fast.
Okay.
When the committee is looking further at this, I think the committee needs also to include a look at homeowners insurance in regard to the keeping of a beehive or anything like it. In my experience, homeowners policies vary a lot. Some of them would cover an accident related to a beehive. Some would not. And I think anyone who wants to keep something like this on their property should be required to demonstrate to the township that they have applicable insurance coverage for it.
Okay, thank you. And then Councilman Siddiq, we have not heard from you yet either. So Councilman Siddiq?
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. He did raise up the question why I had it pass on. I got it. Insurance
Okay.
have to have for the safety reason. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
But other way, our society, our community need more fresh honey.
Mhm.
I myself is a honey lover, so we need more fresh honey. So let's move forward. But at the same time, we have to have the safety reason. The insurance has to be included, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else who hasn't already spoken on this ordinance? Okay, then we're gonna go back to Councilman Bonnet.
Thank you. Actually, one point was already addressed by Solicitor Richardson, who said and clarified that the corner properties have 2 front yards, which is a fact. I just want to make another point that in R2, R1, and RC districts, you can't have fences in the front yard at all, with an exception on certain corner properties up to the front wall. I do also agree. I think this does need a little bit more work. Thank you.
Okay, and now Councilman Tunis. Councilman, oh, he went away and now he's back. There you go. You're sideways again. Councilman, oh. There you go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm up.
Yep, your turn. Back in time.
I was just gonna say with the backyard and front yard thing, I was thinking more of the residents in my district. I'm looking at this from the avenue of how can, when we're doing any type of legislation, how can this equally impact everyone within the township? Not too many properties in my district have an acre of land, and when council members are talking about the front yard, backyard, side yard, we should also keep in mind the diversity of the way some of these homes are built. Some front yards may be bigger, some homes don't even have backyards. So I'm just thinking that this is the opportunity if everyone in my district wanted to have a beehive, how would this be possible? It's just the opportunity for them to want to have it. They should have that freedom. And that's just how I'm looking at this.
So in this, Councilman Hafiz Tunis Jr., you have in the 7th district, you're saying that there are properties with no backyard, but only a front yard, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have to look into that. Okay. Councilwoman Faralia, did you want to ask a question again, or that was the old hand, the hand up for earlier? Okay.
That was the old hand.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, anyone else have a question or concern? Councilman Silva, what would you like to do with this ordinance?
At this time, I think there are a lot of good ideas, but you know, the decision to advertise it would, well, I guess that would be the next meeting.
Right.
No, I think some of these changes are good. The idea of having a permit, because like to have inspections, but to not necessarily know where the inspections are needed, I mean, the permit requirement would sort of address that. The idea of establishing, and again, it sort of begs the question about backyards, like in the 7th, if there are, you know, properties with no backyards, then it would be, yeah,
Do we have any community gardens in the 7th district?
that I'm personally not aware of, no.
I'm not aware, but I can do some research with that for you and get back to you on that.
I'm just curious, you know, because if there is a property that could become a community garden, that perhaps that could solve some of the, to have an opportunity to do a community bee hive colony.
Yeah, I just think something that could be helpful is like whoever's. I think that it would be served if do we have to specify what yard it is? Because like beyond the 7th, there are many homes within this township that just have a different diverse way. Like you say a backyard, and some homes have no yard, believe it or not. You just have like a little bit of concrete. That's it. A sidewalk. So like, do we have to specify what yard it is?
Well, the concern is that within our property maintenance ordinance, the front yard distinguishes that you can't have a fence higher than 4 feet, which means, but the one thing that they do talk about in the bee ordinance is that that it is, it can often be trees doing that box in for the flyaway zone. That has to be very thick so that the bees do not fly through. So basically the concept is they can't fly through, they have to fly up and out. So a fence itself can't be higher than 4 feet, but that doesn't mean bushes or trees can't be higher than 4 feet, because I have a tree in my front yard that's, 100 feet tall. So, but the whole point is also to not block people's view when they're pulling out of their driveway, I believe is part of that. So I think we got to look at it a little bit to see how to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Questions, concerns? All right, Councilman Burke.
Thanks, Laura. Just to clarify, all 7 districts in the township, there's quite a few houses in all the districts that don't have backyards. At the bottom of my street, they don't have a backyard. In the 2nd district, they don't have backyards. They have alleys. They only have front yards. And with the 4 foot, the 6 foot high was my concern. So it's throughout the township, 2nd district, 1st district, that don't have backyards also. So
okay,
if we would change the property maintenance code to 6 feet, then all the people we turned down about putting fences for 6 feet in front of the house or the side of the house, we'd have to change a lot of ordinances. So that was my main concern about safety and the property maintenance code. That's all.
Okay.
Thank
then
you.
we'll look into it. Okay, so Councilman Silva, you were saying you're okay to move forward as long as we get an opportunity to make some changes before the next meeting to update it based on the discussion?
Yeah, I would like to have a meeting, and I think if anybody would like to be on that discussion, I'd welcome that as well. So
we'll still need to keep it within the less than the quorum. So how about they send you their concerns to you?
that would be, yeah, I guess I didn't consider the quorum requirement. Yes.
Okay. So any concerns you have on this ordinance, hold on, Bob, send to Councilman Silva so that he can make sure your voice is heard within the committee's meeting. Okay, Councilman Gwynn?
I just wanted to say, you'll get the ordinance, the revised ordinance draft back to us when you're accomplished it.
Of course, of course.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so, and then please, Councilman Silva, move on with your committee.
Sure. One thing, I guess, before doing the regular committee meeting as well, we did have a committee meeting about food trucks, and there was a concern about food trucks being not being able to comply with with COVID-19 requirements as they were laid out. Actually, it was a good discussion we had within the committee, Council President, and also Alexis, and also Director McSween as well. So I do want to just, because of that meeting, Director McSween is going to reach out to the primary food truck vendor we have in Upper Darby is Mr. Softy. He's going to reach out to them directly, and then also they're going to conduct their inspections a little different and probably a little more frequently with mobile food establishments to just basically make sure that they follow the Department of Agriculture guidelines as far as making sure that both the operators and the customers are, following distancing requirements. Actually, to be fair, most of the operators I witnessed are. It's primarily actually like customers that are, but again, want to make sure that there's appropriate signage there, that people know to maintain their distance, hopefully wear a mask, and just so we don't spread it from one community to the next through like a mobile food vendor. So with that, I don't know if anyone has any questions or concerns about that. But
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, we also have some people who use their food trucks elsewhere, but bring them back here, and they house them on their own properties. And we have to be cognizant of what your language is relative to them as well.
Well,
and their effects on their inspections, et cetera, while they're sitting in our backyards or whatever in the community.
I believe the inspections that Mr. Director McSween was talking about was for people operating within the township.
I know, but that's why I wanted to have that included in the, in the census of it.
You know what, I'll reach out to Director McSween and let him know those concerns as well. That does make sense, actually. So.
Anybody else have any questions or concerns on Councilman Siddiq? Go ahead.
Yeah, I did talk with our public health subcommittee regarding the food truck. Basically, we're talking about the ice cream truck, Mr. Softy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did visit the Mr. Softy, and that I saw that 50-50 they were following the CDC guideline. And I introduced myself to the truck driver, and he said he will do next time to strictly follow the COVID-19 guidelines. My question, I think it will be solicitor can tell me better. If somebody want to do the gyro truck in 69th Street area, we will give them license if they follow our township instruction and proper license and sanitation and all these things. Are we allowed to approve them, the gyro trucks?
I think that's a Vince question. I don't, or Mayor, I don't know if we have food trucks outside of.
So I have to double check, but I think there's provisions for food trucks in another ordinance. I think that we worked on in the last couple of years. Is that right, Councilman Burnett? We passed an ordinance. The medical marijuana dispensaries, and that was joined with another ordinance, or it could be possibly in the ordinance for the farmer's market, another like temporary food thing. So I'll have to check.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I think it was separate. Like a gyro truck was for some reason different than the ice cream truck.
I
I'm
think
not sure
gyro,
why.
I think gyro truck has to follow the same guideline what the restaurant are doing, who's selling the food. It could be like that.
Right, that's what, I mean, for some reason, I've seen ice cream trucks for as long as I've lived here, but I haven't seen any other type of food trucks except for at specific events. So I think there's more ordinances that we have to look into to see what they are more specific to those.
Yeah, it was my understanding, speaking with Director McSween, that it would fall under the guidelines for a restaurant of the appropriate size. So
if somebody applied, then we can issue a license then, if they follow the proper guidelines. Am I right?
Let us check the ordinances before.
yeah, we should, that should be
Okay,
checked
okay, no
first.
problem.
Yeah,
Just is good to know, you know.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I guess if we're done with the mobile food vendor issue, does anyone else from the Public Health and Environmental Affairs Committee have anything to bring to council? Does any member of council have anything to bring to council or bring to the Public Health or Environmental Affairs Committee?
Bob?
I just want to make a more of a general comment. I look at this committee as being something that we need to have very active in Upper Darby. And I saw that Delco is looking to try to also get their health department up and running. I'd like to see if we can maybe direct or guide them into this area or help us craft our ordinances that would allow for this type of thing to be done in Upper Darby in terms of health and human services.
I think that's a good idea. I look forward to, I'll reach out to the county, I guess, as they're creating the new health department, and then yeah, to see what way we can be of assistance. That's a good idea. Thank you. Is there any member of the administration that has anything for public health or the Environmental Affairs Committee? Oh, okay. I believe at this time then that completes my report.
Great, thank you. Okay, so up next is the Leisure Services Committee, Chairwoman Lisa Faralia, and members are Councilman Silva, Councilwoman Blackwell, and Councilman Tunis Jr. Go ahead, Councilwoman Faralia.
Does anybody from the committee have anything to bring forward? Anyone on council?
No.
Department head, well, no department heads there. All right, that's it. I don't have anything to report.
So I'm sorry, I was a little slow. I was
Yeah.
So for mayor and CAO, you talked about slowly opening the parks for walking and tennis. Is it possible that our leisure, because we had talked in the wintertime about the Leisure Services Committee doing a tour of the parks in the township to get a sense of their condition and so forth. Now that it's warmer out, is that something that we can make happen within the committee? And is that cool for you guys? Overall question.
Yeah.
That's probably something we could work on.
Great. Lisa?
No, go ahead, Vince.
Oh, I was just, yes, I think we could facilitate the tour of the parks now, going from red to yellow and doing a slow reopening. I think we could do that.
Great.
Okay, I'll get together with Danielle and Matt, and we can see when we could schedule a time to go through. But is there somebody that can take us around?
And Hafiz is also in your committee.
Hafiz, yep.
And me.
Yeah, sure.
All right, perfect.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Great. All right, so then moving on, we have, oh, right. Public Safety Committee is next. Councilman Burke is the chairman. Members are Councilwoman Blackwell and Councilman Silva and Tunis Jr. Take away Councilman Burke. Just want to let you know that Councilman Wagner did tell me in advance that he did have something for this committee. So I just want to let you know.
Thank you, Laura. First off, I'd like to say thank you to Superintendent Bernhardt for his report earlier today. And does anybody from committee have anything to bring forward tonight? Does anybody from council have anything to bring forward tonight?
I do, Brian.
Yeah, Tom.
Thank you. We have a petition from the residents of the 900 block of Mason Avenue to post 15-mile-per-hour signs on their block. It has already been reviewed and approved and verified by the police department. And I would request it be placed on the agenda at our next meeting and hopefully acted upon favorably.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
At this point, I think it's a great idea. And Laura, can we put that on for next meeting?
Yes, I just want to make sure that we're all clear that as far as enforcement, that we can only, my understanding is we only enforce 25 miles per hour. We can't really enforce 15 miles per hour. Just so that it's meant to empower people to slow down, but we can't give them a ticket for
That's
going.
the idea. These
Okay.
signs are on a lot of blocks, and they have some effect.
Right.
They're not a miracle, but they have some effect on getting traffic to slow down. That's the idea.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure we were all clear. Also, because we have new members on council that may not realize that ruling in the equation. So I also wanted to let you know, Brian, I don't know if you see, but Councilman Silva and Councilman Gwynn do have something to say. So, but yes, Alexis, I know you're there listening. If you can add Councilman Wagner's request to the agenda for the next meeting, that would be excellent. Thank you.
I will do that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilman Burke. So Councilman Silva. Sorry, I don't know if you could see his hand. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sure. For one thing, I'm sorry, the 900 block of what street was the request
Mason.
for?
Mason.
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 Okay. I was just curious if I had missed any notices or anything. Do we have a meeting of the Public Safety Committee at any time since
No, we haven't.
January?
No, we haven't. Hopefully we will be able to have it since we go from red to yellow, maybe next week, if we can use, municipal building, since we can have social distance there. We'll let Vince answer that if we're allowed to use the building.
Okay. And we couldn't meet any other way or anything. It just seems like there's a lot going on that would impact public safety. I'm just surprised we hadn't met. I wasn't sure if perhaps I had missed it.
Well, you didn't miss anything because I didn't miss anything either, Matt. All decisions are made at the higher level. We're just to do ordinances and resolutions. Any decisions were made at the top level. So whatever you missed, I missed. So.
Okay. That's not what I found in other committees I'm on, but okay. All right. I was just curious if I'd missed something. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Gwynn. You need to turn your mic on, Councilman Gwynn. There you go.
Sorry. I had received some notices about accidents and complaints about speeding on Owen Avenue. Forwarded to the mayor's office relative to it. I know we talked before relative to what we have done in the past and funds that we have in reserve. Vince and Barbara Ann, I know you want to address what these people have complained about. So I want to bring it up and let you go ahead.
I think, Bob, you and I need to have a, like a, offline conversation about Owen Avenue.
Okay.
And the money. So, I mean, it's just be a quick phone call, probably.
Right, because before COVID-19, we had talked about, or you had, Mary, you had mentioned at a meeting to possibly do speed humps for prototype for Parkview and Owen. So I would love to hear more about it as well.
Okay, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any, Councilman, I see Councilman Hafiz,
No.
Councilman Siddiq and then Lisa. Go ahead, Siddiq.
I would like to request through the Public Safety Committee that we are maintaining the social distancing and then shopping around, walking around, small socializing. So if we can consider to open the township building for business while we are following the social distancing from red to yellow.
Well, I do believe they said the mayor said at the beginning at her address that they're not opening the township building until they have things figured out for that. And quite frankly, I mean, any committee can be meeting. A lot of committees have met virtually, whether it be a conference call or Zoom or meetings hangout. Alexis has set up meeting hangout for many committees thus far. So we don't have to show up in the same room and actually meet on any issue in any committee at any time. So
yeah, I just want to say real quick, we're not opening the township building up for committee meetings or anything like that. So
yeah, I do not say committee. I do not say any meeting purpose. I did say that for normal business.
And we can't do that yet. We don't have everything in place for the regular public, public facing, the tax office and the L&O department come to mind pretty quickly. So we're gonna try and get ready. Yeah, but that not any time in the next week or two.
thank you. I have Lisa. I saw that her hand up.
Yes. Oh, I can't get on here.
Hit the camera guy. There you go.
I got it. So I just wanted to say something about the 15 mile an hour. In my district, multiple streets are all 15 miles an hour, and it is enforced by the police department because many times they sit on the street at the corner and give out tickets for not doing the speed limit. So
my understanding is that at least from previous council meetings, actually then Mayor Makosi said on numerous occasions that based on regulations, I believe from PennDOT, that they could not actually enforce 15 miles per hour. If that is wrong, then we need clarification on that. But I mean, maybe they were there to, just presence alone helps slow people down.
Well, maybe you need to check with the superintendent and stuff because that they do enforce it.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes. That's it.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Wait, I just have something else to say too, real quick.
Go ahead.
Yesterday when I was at the polling places, somebody from the fire company had asked me, they said they were trying to get in touch with the mayor and Mr. Reggione about setting up a meeting, but nobody has contacted them. So if somebody can reach out to them, would be great. I said I would say something, but I just remembered that. And then I had one other thing, because we were talking about social distancing and how we want people to speak at our meetings. maybe moving forwards, we could start having meetings now, since we can't go into to the township building. Maybe we can do it with, if the school district would let us, that we could have it at the school, either in the auditorium or in the Performing Arts Committee. So we could all be like 6 feet apart and let so many people in to speak. Any ideas? Comments?
We can, go ahead, Mayor.
I'll just say a couple things. One, I'm not sure what firefighter organization you're talking about. We have a meeting set up in June with
Okay.
one of the organizations, and I think the school buildings are closed in general. That's why we're not having the tot lot and all that stuff. I mean, I guess we could look into it, but I don't. My understanding, the school board has their meeting, but only some of the school boards there, not the entire board and not the public. I'm not sure how they're doing that, but
All right, well, it's just throwing it out there.
okay.
Okay. Councilman Barnett.
Thank you. Yeah, Elisa and I have actually talked about this. I think what she was referring to is perhaps in the Performing Arts Center, which is huge, where people could attend and be spread a good distance apart. And even us as a panel sitting on the stage could be a good distance apart, all in the interest of getting back physically, enabling people to come in person and be able to comment about any legislation or any actions of council that are being considered.
So at the moment, my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that as we move into the yellow phase, you cannot put more than 25 people in any room together anyway. Vince, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, that's actually a good point, Council President. That's one of the things that I was going to say, the 25-person limit, and also just with regard to the school buildings, Performing Arts Center, et cetera, it's the Pennsylvania Department of Education has ordered the school buildings closed. So it's actually not even a local school board or school administration policy in terms of those specific buildings. I mean, I'm not indifferent to the idea, but we would have to find a location that was not a school district if the council wanted to head in that direction.
Okay, Councilman Gwynn.
This is just a general comment. There were plenty of people, probably in excess of 25, that were in these buildings for election day and voting. Just the size of the staffs that could have been there for the election boards. But yeah, they were allowed in there based upon the governor's order. And then the Elko's decision to consolidate polling places.
Right, but that was also social distancing was applied. There was
You haven't seen them, and you weren't in them.
I was in them, and I was in them all over the fourth.
Hereford, a hallway.
Well, if you can get the governor to let us have our meeting in there, I mean, sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm just pointing out that we choose and
also they were in and out. I mean, even though I know they weren't practicing social distancing, they were in and out within a matter of minutes. They weren't there for hours at a time.
And right, in some situations, some polling locations, it was a closer proximity, but in many of them, pathways were created for the voters to not be within a 6-foot radius of each other. Protocols were in place as much as physically possible to make that happen. So, yeah. So, okay. So, sorry. We're still on public, right? So, Councilman Burt, is there anything else for your committee?
Doesn't seem to be. So that concludes my report.
Okay. All right, so next up, we have the Event Planning Committee. Councilwoman Billups is the chairwoman. Councilman Hafiz Jr., Councilwoman Blackwell, and Councilman Silva are all members. Councilwoman Billups, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Anyone from committee have anything to report?
No.
Anyone from council have anything to report?
So I do.
Okay.
Okay, so with everything that's been going on with the protest, the loss of George Floyd and other lives, and the peaceful protests versus the looters and so forth, I had some conversations with State Representative Margot Davidson, as well as Superintendent Bernhardt, about after this week to get the events committee together with them to talk about a little bit more, and we of course would love the mayor to join us on things that we can do to help bridge the gap, communications gaps, build relationships, stronger relationships between the Black and Brown communities of Upper Darby with our police departments, and anything that we can do to help bridge the gap in that capacity. And that in some of the conversations I had with them, also talked about having the events committee create, whether it's having guest speakers come and speak about particular issues, or virtual events to tackle issues that are important to the committee, our community, and issues that are going on. I understand that the civil service, the test for getting into the police academy through our department is going to be coming up in the near future. We talked about helping to bridge, to empower people of diversity to apply for it, and things like that. So that's just some of the things that I talked to them about, and also talked to the committee about, so that we sometime next week we can establish a meeting to start the conversation, so that we can start to heal our community moving forward. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from council?
No.
Anyone from the administration? No? That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next up we have old business. And in old business, Mayor, could we get a COVID-19 update as well? I know we've kind of talked about it throughout the time, but if there's anything that we haven't already covered, if anything that we had missed, if you can give us an update on.
I can't think of anything else besides we're moving from red to yellow. Yeah, at home orders won't be enforced on Friday either. We're working here in the here in the administration. We're working on we're applying for grants to help us fix the building up on the inside so that there is so we can bring people in safely, with plexiglass, and we're going to renovate the library as well. So I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I've been a little preoccupied.
I can't imagine you've been preoccupied
with some other things lately, but
yes.
Anything else?
Yeah, no, I think we've covered it pretty well throughout the meeting and just now.
Great. Okay, cool. Is there any other old business that anyone has? Councilman Barnett?
Yes, at our last meeting, we tabled ordinance 3076, which the debate was around the residency issue. Where have we progressed on that issue since?
All right. Solicitor, any solicitor like to ban on that?
I thought it was tabled, and I believe what it was going to Councilman Silva's committee to take a look at. I thought that was where the procedural posture was.
Okay.
I think
I'm
it was
sorry,
Councilwoman Billups.
Councilwoman Billups, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, actually, I think we were, we had a lot of ordinances that we were working on for this meeting, along with everything else that happened since that point in time, that it did not make it to the committee agenda. So is that fair to say, Ms. Councilwoman Billups?
Yeah, we can set something up in the next week to meet and to discuss it, yes.
Great. Okay. Okay, so any other old business? Councilman Burke?
Yes, thank you. An update on the land development of Aronimink School. I've noticed that the actual project went out for bid and is due in the next 10 or 12 days. Just an update on the process of the land development. School district actually sent the bids out to public. That's all.
Yes, the land development was obviously approved. There's been an appeal, but there was no request for a stay with that appeal. And I had a conversation with school district's counsel, made her aware that if the appellants are successful, that she could have a problem on her hands. And her position was the school district wanted to move forward anyway, which is their legal right.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? For old business? Okay, seeing none. Heading on to new business. Vince Rangione, CAO, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Actually, and I'm not 100% sure that it's possible that this should have been old business.
You're right, it should be old business.
Yeah,
right.
sorry about that.
We're still in old business. Check that out. I'm erasing new business from my list. Thusly, we are still in old business. All right.
If you remember, I think back in January, we discussed the mutual aid fire service agreement with Milbourne Borough. And we had made the decision at the time to allow Milbourne to act first, and then we would take up the contract. And Milbourne has taken a little while to return a signed agreement to the township. So for the past 4 or 5 months, Milbourne has been reimbursing us on a per incident basis. We now have a signed agreement from them for mutual aid, the terms of which are substantially similar to those that we discussed back in January, with 1 or 2 differences. One being that this contract would start in June and run through the end of the year. So obviously in January, it would have started in January. The administration had hoped to see a retroactive contract signed, but under the circumstances, they have been being invoiced on a per incident basis, and it's unlikely that since so many months have passed that that's something that we would be able to do. The only other change was at the time we discussed a 1-year term, and the contract that came back has a term that goes to 2024. But the good news is that Milbourne, has agreed to sign on to the contract. It's $40,000 a year, or roughly $3,333 per month. So that is old business. So the township needs to sign and return the contract, but also discuss, yeah, possibly changing a term or two.
Okay, is it saying that we can send it before we have a bunch of council questions? Can we send it after this meeting? Is it a contract we can send to council after this meeting?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So, I saw, Gwyn and, hold on, I saw Gwyn first, then Burke. And I think there was someone else that I saw before, Sadiq, Burke. And Sadiq, and then Councilman Barnett, I'm guessing you wanted to speak as well. And then, so go ahead, Bob.
Just a quick question to Vince. How much have we recovered so far from the billing with the Millbourne for the services here to date?
Yeah, I apologize, Councilman Gwynn. I actually do have that report on my desk in the Township building. But I don't have it in front of me, so I'll have to.
I understand. At your
yeah.
convenience.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Burke.
Thank you. So I believe the contract was for $40,000 a year for the first,
Correct.
for 1 year. And we're going to receive $20,000 or $22,000 or $20,000 starting June. And come 2021, are we going to receive that $40,000 on January 1 or over the course of 6 months or 12 months? What's the
12 months paid monthly.
So they can decide to pay us or not pay us then?
Yeah, theoretically, well, not theoretically, actually, yes. And in terms of this year, it would be the whatever it is, the 2022 plus whatever we've received, on the per incident rate. Look, it's a difficult situation, right? When things catch on fire, you gotta go put them out, and they sort of know that. So.
Right. No. I mean, just it gets, when you break it down by month, doesn't cover the lawyer's fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Sadiq. Did you have a question?
Yeah, the Melbourne Fire, we are initially in contract for 1 year, right? Am I right? Are they looking for 4 year or how they want?
They're apparently looking for 4 year. Yeah.
And we want to make 1 year or we want to go with 4 year?
Well, the discussion that we had was that we would do 1 year because there were some other things in terms of fire inspections and things that we would like to add to the contract. So yeah, the idea was that we would prefer a shorter term on the contract.
So basically it's with the intent to update the contract after that year to input the other things that you wanted to input, right?
Correct.
Okay. Great. And then Don Burnett.
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Lisa, is your blue hand up from before? Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure. Okay, so no more. So any more old business? Okay, heading on to new business. Mayor.
So on Friday, there'll be an RFP in the paper and on Penn Bid for a number of CDBG projects. 2 of them are sewer and storm sewer related. And the third one is for an RFP to do a study of the current, the Welcome Center, that building that the township owns. The study will focus on, it's a feasibility study for a community center for Upper Darby. So we had the previous administration had dedicated funds towards doing a study for an elevator at the boxing club, which is owned by the Upper Darby Fire Company. And in February, CAO Vince Rangioni and I went to visit the boxing club and see the storied boxing club and see what it looks like. And most of the equipment inside of there is in great shape. The gym is heated year round to like 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So what we had discussed at the time and also with John McMullen and Tamara Crump was not to have an elevator built on a building that we don't own, and then to look into either refurbishing or demolishing and building a new building on property that the township does own. And I think a community center would be great. We're thinking about, we'd like to move all the boxing gym equipment over to the new community center and get the boxing gym up and running again. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'd like to see, what the winner of the bid comes up with. I think it could be really great. So that's it for me for new business.
Awesome. Councilman Hafiz Tunis, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm good. I just want to thank the mayor and administration for looking into that. It's that's a really good location. If you live in that area, you're aware of the lack of recreation activity that many kids have faced, and the lack of recreation activity we haven't had since the closing of the gym. So I think this can lead to a lot of great things in Upper Darby Township. And it could be used for so many things beyond just sports recreation in Upper Darby, just for the youth. I think this is a great thing.
Great. And then Councilman Siddiq. Go ahead. You gotta turn your mic on. There you go.
Yeah, what I want to ask, any update regarding the old Sears building on 69th Street?
The Sears building?
Yes.
Do we have any idea what's happening with that?
I mean, that area is like a 4th floor. The parking lot is dark all the time there. And so many things happening after the sun goes down. And sometimes a lot of debris and trash over there. So I believe that the property owner paying the tax to the township, but if he have any plan to do anything, any project, any development for the 69th Street.
So,
go ahead.
Councilman Siddiq, earlier, BC before Corona, CAO Rangioni and I did meet with Ashkenazi. That's the realtor group that owns most of not every property, but most of the properties that were looted the other night between Market Street and Walnut Street. So we are working with them we were at the time working with them to look for possible state redevelopment funding and support that we could give them. But I think everything's up in the air right now after this weekend. Jeff Price came down and we met with him briefly on Monday. So he was there to kind of assess the damage, and so we are in communication with them, but I just think after Sunday that things are at more of a standstill than they were even during this pandemic.
Thank you. We need that. It's going to be huge input in our township.
I see it done. Okay. Anything else, Sadiq? Is that okay? Councilman Barnett.
Thank you. A question for the mayor and Vince Rangioni. Where does the previous administration had a plan in place to expand the senior center in Pilgrim Gardens? Are we still on track with that?
No, I mean, that's part of an ongoing conversation with the school district and our various kind of interwoven agreements with them. But at the moment, that is on hold.
What is the roadblock in that, Vince? Could you tell me?
Yeah. I think there are a couple issues. One is COSA funding from the county, and another is just an issue of priorities and trying to rearrange our arrangements with the school district. We have a number of shared employees and shared physical spaces, and we're trying to disentangle a lot of those things. And the Department of Leisure Services, where the senior center is run out of, is one of those things.
But I thought this was all worked out and it was all set. Basically, the direction was set to move ahead with this, leases signed, et cetera. Not so?
No, I mean, the lease is one of those sort of complicated legal arrangements that it's a little bit like a Jenga puzzle. And so just to give you an example, the school district is about to move their administration building, at least temporarily during construction, possibly over to where the sanitation yard is, which means that we might have to find a new place for the sanitation yard. So there are kind of a lot of dominoes that go when you kind of push over any one of them. And so we just felt it was prudent to kind of hit the pause button and see where we landed as we worked through this stuff.
Yeah, well, there's a huge demand for this expansion. It serves a great purpose. It's a well-used facility. It's undersized. The director does a fantastic job. Donna does a fantastic job of managing that facility. And I would hope that it is on our radar screen to proceed with that. Is it fair to say that it's not a dead project?
It's certainly fair to say that it's on our radar screen and that Donna does a great job. I don't know that it's dead. Yeah, I don't know that it's dead. I know that it's something that we have to work out with the
Yeah,
school
I
district.
don't sense that's a priority, however. Is that a fair statement?
That's probably a fair statement.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Well, at this point in time, the senior centers aren't being used at the moment. But
Right,
any of
that's
the
also
senior
true.
centers aren't open, and they have not been open since we went into COVID-19. But meals have been provided for seniors through the Watkins Center, correct? So
Correct.
we're still assisting our seniors, but no seniors have been going to the senior centers since.
No, that's not the question, though. It's the point looking
No,
ahead when we're open, that we provide the need, we meet the need, and the need is there for more space.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
understood.
Councilman Gwynn?
Just to Don's point, as I recall, there was also a desire to contact Delaware County to find out their contribution or what they were going to do with that. How has that progressed? Is that also tied up with how things are going there?
It very much is, and as a matter of fact, we've had some ongoing conversations with them about the need to close the senior centers because there's some debate about whether we will receive our our regular complement of COSA funding, let alone the expansion funding, given the pandemic. The idea being that the services aren't being provided. And of course, our counter argument is, We are still paying the staff. We have ramped up. We're doing even more meal delivery than we would do otherwise, and it's more staff intensive. So there's kind of an ongoing conversation with them about those facts.
Simply put, we're just trying to be fiscally responsible for our seniors as well. And rather than get bound up in another agreement where money is going out when we don't have a clear concept of the incoming funds, it's not a good choice.
Yes, that's well put. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I was just taking notes. Okay, anyone else have anything for new business? Lisa, was that your hand? Lisa?
Yes,
Go ahead and turn your
do.
mic on.
Yep, it's on.
Go ahead. Go
So
for it.
I had a question, and I guess this is for the mayor. Are we still going through with the pavement of the driveways? Or was that stopped?
Oh, the alleyways?
Yes.
No, we're not going through with that. Whatever was done last year is done.
So the grant money for that, where does
That's
that go?
not grant money, that was capital fund money. We're not spending capital fund money on driveways. They're private driveways. For many years that I was on council, anytime anybody asked for them to be repaired, they were told it's private, you have to fix it yourself. And then last year, there was a policy change, but we're not going to do that. We are going to look for a way to get them paved, but in more of a joint project and not just strictly capital fund money.
Okay.
We can use CDBG money for it, and we are looking at ways to be creative, but it's not going to be a straight capital fund budget allocation.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. And thank you, Mayor, for looking into ways to do the same project or concept of the project through CBG funding versus using our capital funding. That's great. For that. Okay, and then anyone else with new business? Anyone? Okay, just double check the schedule. Okay. All right, so seeing no more new business, then I'd say it's fair to adjourn this meeting at 10:07 p.m. So thank you everyone for taking part. Great discussion tonight. Thank you for everyone's inputs and thoughts and concerns on things. That was a really positive meeting. So thank you so much.
Everyone have a good night. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Yep.
Right.